So today we are talking how to prepare for an uncomfortable conversation on video. Now, I haven't had too many uncomfortable conversations, but I need this training, okay? Because when I do, I want to be prepared. Our guest is Tanisha King. She's an author, speaker, and consultant. So let's just dive on in. When you're preparing for an uncomfortable conversation, and like you said, your background is DEI, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of practice. I've been doing this work for nearly 20 years. So y'all don't count my numbers and my age based on that, okay? Don't go
You still look good. You still look
good. Thank you, girl. Thank you. So what you want to do, especially as a leadership, right? As a person in leadership, you want to set the tone and foundation for the conversation. So if I get a bias incident report, that's never comfortable. No one ever wants to be confronted and say I did or said something wrong, insulting, or offensive, right? And so as a leader, I want to make sure I set the tone for them. I give them a heads up about what the context of the conversation will be first. What did the report say, right? And then when I enter the meeting, I say, this is not a disciplinary hearing. This is not, I am not HR. I don't have any authority or power over your employment status, so on and so forth. This is a conversation to give you educational tools, tips, and strategies to move forward, to minimize harm from with other people. And so I set the tone in order to, make folks comfortable and to pretend to have this open conversation, right? Like we're going to engage a little bit further. And so I set the tone as a leader. Now, from the other end of the table, making sure you're prepared for an uncomfortable conversation, you keep your line of communication open. Keep your mind open to actually engaging in that conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it is. That means not being defensive. Right? No one likes to, again, be told that you're doing something wrong or said something wrong. We are really not prone in our society to correction. I think even more so in recent days, we just don't like confrontation. We're conflict avoidant. And so as a person on the end of kind of receiving some constructive criticism, you want to keep an open mind. And you also, especially from the diversity lens, want to remember that it is not about you. When a bias incident happened, we're talking about harm that was caused to another person. We recognize that it can be unintentional. Most bias is, that's what implicit bias is, right? It can be unintentional, right? If it's intentional, it's usually egregious. But remember, it's not about you. So your defensiveness is for none. We're attempting to create a culture of inclusivity. And so the point of the conversation is to give you those tools, not attack you. So you have to go in knowing, hey, I said something that could have offended someone, even though I didn't mean to. So I need to have some cultural humility here, right? So now I'm going to humble myself and say, you know what? I didn't mean it. And I'm going to choose to learn why that wasn't okay from a historical context and how I can move forward with it.
So how do you do that? How do you bounce back if you offended someone? And say if you're having a conversation with someone, how do you bounce back from that?
Yeah, you're just honest about it. Like, use who you are. Genuineness and authenticity goes a really long way. That's what cultural humility is about. You step back, pause, and reflect, right? So self-reflection about who I am, what are my values, what are my core beliefs, right? Put yourself in that other person's shoes to say, right, how would that have made me feel, right? And then apologize. I'm sorry, that was not my intention. That is not okay. I'll do better next time. Right? And you may choose to educate yourself on some of the things related to what your offense was. For instance, I've been doing this work, like I told y'all, for 20 years, and I still make mistakes. Yes, I'm a consultant. Yes, I'm a chief inclusion officer, but bias and implicit bias still lives within me because I grew up in the United States, and it's the foundation of a lot of the ills of our society is riddled in bias and stereotypes. And my privilege shows up in different ways. As a Black woman, right, I still have privilege. I was doing a presentation for a group of people at my college and did not have closed caption on the screen. Who does that impact? The hard of hearing and deaf culture. But I'm not hard of hearing or deaf. Therefore, it's not an immediate need for me. And so I don't go there. My privilege didn't allow me to see that that was a problem. Right. And so I was called out on it, and I got my nice little email because people, you're right, and rightfully so. They should have never had to call that out, but they chose to and said, right, Tanisha, you didn't have closed captions. That's really not okay. That's not inclusive. And I said, you are absolutely correct. It was inappropriate. It was not okay. And you should not have had to go out of your way to tell me to do that. Shame on me. I'm sorry. And then I fixed it. And now I have closed caption every time I present.
And it's funny that you said that, because it's not that I had that experience. Well, I had a young lady on that I was interviewing, and she talked about that because of her background. And I was just like, oh my God, like you said, it never crossed my mind to even do that because of the privilege I have with being able to hear. And once she said that, I was just like, oh, you're excluding a whole group of people, because I think that it was like her brother wanted to see the program. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to make that adjustment. So you're right. Like sometimes we're thinking about it through our lens and, it's offensive, but it seems like the people that said something to you, or just like when she said something to me, I was ignorant, on that subject matter. And so I was just like, oh my God, I never thought about that, and corrected the behavior. So yeah, you have to think that, I guess it's like when it's you have a little bit of sympathy, but sometimes you don't have that same sympathy when it's coming from the opposite way, if that person is willing to, accept responsibility.
And Rosie, it's also about like a little bit of pride and a little bit of ego. And it's like, who are you to check me? Right. I could have been like, I'm the chief inclusion officer. Don't come at me. I come at you, and people really get in they, bag like that. They really get in their feelings like that, but it's about owning it. And it sounds like you chose to be like, you know what? I'm sorry, that's not okay. Let me go ahead and just put this up here. But a lot of the times people create additional problems and additional barriers because their pride and ego tells them that they're right anyway. Since I didn't mean any harm, even though it offended you, there was no harm, no foul. And then that just kind of perpetuates some of the problems.
I'm Rosie, your video coach and your program and course creator for I'm Doing This, I'm Going Live, and the real secrets to gaining confidence and going live. I help women gain confidence and conquer their fear of video. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask them and put them in the comments section. I definitely want to engage with you and answer your questions there. If you find value in this video, let's start again. If you find value in this video, give it a thumbs up, check out my other videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and we will all be together. I gave a brief intro about you. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so I'm just a little Black girl from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised there, and I currently teach at a number of institutions in social justice, social change, and some policy work. I do some consultancy for diversity, equity, inclusion, and I serve as a chief inclusion officer for a medical college.
So how has this work helped women in general?
So I am just absolutely in love with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I do a lot of women empowerment talks and speeches at conferences. And I have some one-on-one clients for consultancy as women to help them defy odds and overcome obstacles through radical self-love. The DEI space, usually people think about underrepresented minority groups and marginalized groups, right? And automatically you almost think race and gender. And sometimes you throw LGBTQIA plus in there, right? But rarely do you hold kind of women as a catalyst, but we are underrepresented in a marginalized group. And so sexism and misogyny still happen in the workplace, right? And we're still paid far less in wages than men are. Right? It's still at least 60 cents less to every dollar that they make. We're making only 60 cents to that dollar, still in 2022, right? In recent data. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion is important for women because it gives them a space to have a voice and a seat at the table. Most C-suite areas don't have a lot of women at the table, right? When you're doing diversity work, you're going to recruit women now. Then you're going to recruit underrepresented minority women and have their voice and space at the table. And so the work really segments out these different categories of populations, and specifically for women and then underrepresented women, we have tools and strategies to recruit, to retain, to create a sense of belonging and welcoming environment, and so on and so forth.
So do you think that this is here to stay? It's been around for a while, but do you think this will continue on?
The diversity work will continue on. As y'all have seen nationally, there's been a rise in the diversity work, especially since the death of Breonna and George Floyd. And there was a rise in it. And people jumped on the bandwagon. That's really what they did. A lot of organizations were not kind of in tune to that. And now they have social media campaigns, right? You've seen it in your world, from a digital content perspective, they have these social media campaigns, and they're kind of claiming and waving this diversity flag. I don't think it's going anywhere. What I do think is happening is that a lot of people are performative, meaning they are just doing the campaigns and pretending to really be involved, but not really making significant, impactful, transformative changes that are necessary for it to actually be influential and impactful within their organization, if that makes sense, right? So performative, I'm gonna wave the flag, I'm gonna say what we're doing, but then I still don't have Black folks in my C-suite. All of my leadership is still all white male. I still have an X number of bias incident reports, and I don't have accountability measures in place when that culture of inclusion is violated, right? I'm having my chief inclusion officer report to HR and human resources as opposed to report to top leadership. So that's a conflict of interest, right? So I don't think it's going anywhere, but it's all about each organization's actual commitment to it, right? Do you have an infrastructure? Right? Do you have like an actual space and name committed to that work? Do you have an actual leader that is creating the vision and mission for the work? Do they have a team? Is there a budget, right? There's things that go into the work that are required in order to make it successful. And then the other things will fall in place. Do you have a strategic plan, right? Like you just can't be like, oh, I hired somebody and now, it's done, right? But again, that's performative. Look at us, we have a chief inclusion officer, and then you wipe your hands clean. I've been fortunate enough to work in places and then consult with people that are actually committed and that get it. And they have cultural humility to know what they don't get and kind of just let me do what I need to do in order to make the changes that are possible. But as you know, that's not how every place works. And sometimes it's there just to be there to appease people so they can look like they're doing diverse work. So I think it's here to stay. It just depends on which organization is actually committed and serious about it.
And then to take it a little further, so it's not, I'm hoping it's not just a checkbox type of thing. Okay, well, we have a woman or we have, whatever. What is I know the ratio is the wrong word, but what are we looking for? How do you know you have enough diversity?
Yeah, so it's some of it is metrics, right? Because representation matters and representation is important. So when you look at the difference between like diversity, equity, and inclusion, diversity is who's at the table, like who's there, who's represented, who are we missing, and who are we leaving out, who's not a part of the conversation that will help us be better, right? Then we put our strategy in to recruit those folks. Okay, now we got the people. Okay, inclusion is, do they have a seat at the table and is their voice being heard in the space? Or are they just there to meet the quota? And again, are they being risen, right? Like, are they going up the ladder in this company? Are they given opportunities to get to that C-suite? Is it promotional opportunities there? Are they just there for a period of time and then they have nowhere else where to go and they've hit the ceiling and now they have to leave? And you're forcing them out, then you just replace that person with another person of color, right? So that you can say you have someone there. But are they being utilized to the full potential? Are they being listened to? And then is their voice and suggestions being taken into consideration seriously? And then when you get to equity, are you giving everyone the same thing or are you giving everyone what they need? So equality is giving everybody the same. And I don't know if y'all seen the boxes online where there's these three people standing looking at a baseball game. There's a fence in between them. And one is much taller, one is kind of medium height, and one is really short. And so they're all standing there. The shortest person can't see over the fence, but the other two people can. Equality is giving each of them a box, but each of them didn't need a box. Only the shortest one needed the box because the other ones could see, right? But in the diverse world, we think that if we're giving people something additional, then it's taken away, but it's not. Because if those taller people didn't get the box, they still was gonna be able to see over the fence. So equity in the workplace, right? What are you giving everyone what they need? Everyone doesn't need those closed captions, but making sure it happens is gonna be important so that everyone that does attend feels included and are not excluded from the conversation.
Yeah. Now, circling back to speaking to people and channeling your nerves, how do you do that when you're about to have an uncomfortable conversation, or how have you done that in the past?
Child. So listen, Tanisha's okay. So I have anxiety. I am nervous all the time. It does not go away. It's something that I live with, something that I cope with. In the past, I would just prepare heavily, right? Like prepare for what I'm going to say. What am I going to write out? This is how I'm going to answer this question. And the more I practice, the more I have my examples in mind, the easier it is for me to deliver it. And so specifically with the bias incidents and having these uncomfortable conversations, I already know some tools and tricks in my hat that I'm going to pull out, right? Like I know I have that open and that this is not not disciplinary, right? I know that I'm going to talk about educational opportunities, right? So I already have kind of a spiel about how the flow of the conversation will go. So that preparation helps a ton. In the past, when I spoke, right, to say at the Women's March, there was 5,000 people there. Child, I almost fainted, and it was hot outside. I said, "Oh, Jesus, hey, where you taking me, Lord?" Because it's a lot of folks. But it's just about preparing and like getting into the flow, right? And when you're passionate, I think about the work, and I am. Listen, people will tell you I talk about this stuff until I'm blue in the face. I'm passionate about the work because of what my background is, and because of my passion for our community, and wanted to see the Black community uplifted, and wanted to see a legacy being left for Black children and our youth. The passion takes over, right? So when I get going, it's over with. The nerves are out the door, and it's okay. So at that Women's March, I uplifted Black women's voices. And it's like, I'm talking about Black women. This is important. They need to hear this. And so my nerves are gone because the passion has shown up.
Yeah. And even on the flip side of that, I know when women are on video, when they're talking just to the camera and somebody may not tune into the live, or they're just giving their message, they are like, their anxiety just flares up like, oh my God, I'm just nervous. It feels silly. I feel stupid. But it's the same. It's just like just prepare, have your bullet points. And just like you with your 5,000, I don't know, just look at one person or something like that, or, just glance off or get yourself together and breathe, and it'll be fine. And like you said, once you get going, and I think that's true for a lot of people, you can tell that you're nervous in the beginning, but once you get going, and like you said, you're passionate about that topic, you're fine. You will be fine. The next thing you know, Lord, did I go over my 20 minutes? Did I go?
Right. And listen, and recently I actually picked up an additional practice that helps with that: meditation and journaling. Right. So journaling out things in general from day to day, especially if people that got on your nerves. And honey, in diversity work, people will stomp on your last nerve. It's like, did you just say what I think you just said, honey? It is emotional labor be happening in this world, okay? And so I have to journal about those things to get it out. And I did a recent talk with the Illinois Association of School Social Work. I have a social work background as well. And I was like, nervous. And I did a meditation before that. And it made it so much better. So maybe adopting some practices that work for you. And that's breath work, right? Meditation is about breathing and calm and whatnot. So finding what works for you that calms you down. It might be coloring. It might be, right, a shower before. It could be anything. So finding what calms and soothes you, and then do that before you're getting ready to hit the stage.
Yeah. And for me, I just like to be alone. I don't want to be talking to nobody. I'm already nervous. I don't want to talk to nobody. I just want to be alone. I just want to go over my notes for the last, couple of minutes that I have. And then, say a prayer, do my breathing. And it's just like game time. But yeah, I think everybody needs to get their game plan together. And sometimes you don't know that if you're first starting out. I didn't know, I just was just like, let's just do it. But after I started doing it, for a while, I was just like, you know what? I don't like talking to people. Let me just find a little corner and get myself together. And you adopt those practices.
She said, you know what? I actually don't like talking to y'all. No. I ain't trying to have no conversation. Leave me alone.
God, you may have bubble guts at the last minute. I ain't got time to be talking to you. I need to go handle that, get myself together, breathe, and go. And I don't want to talk to you.
Listen, that happened a lot in the beginning too. That's TMI. But I was like, oh my stomach, Lord. But this too shall pass.
Exactly.
I've been delivered. Okay.
And then connecting. How do you know when you're connecting with your audience?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I'm such a I want to call it engaging person, and I'm enthusiastic and like rattle, and I want to talk with people. I don't want to just talk at or to you. So when I'm giving or delivering a lecture, I want that engagement. I know I'm engaging when their eyes are focused on me, right? And it's just like a blank stare, but you don't know if they stand because they think you nuts or if like they really get it. But I think they be getting it most of the time. I think they like it. So when they're like, the eye contact is there, right? They're not fiddling with other stuff. Like you are the focal point, and they are in tune, and they are engaged, and they're centering in on you. When they're responding, honey, like they're in church and they like preach, right? And they're interacting and engaging with you, or making their sounds like, right? That that they are tuned in, and they're catching what you're putting down. And a lot of the times you're not finding out what works until you've done it frequently and multiple times, right? And sometimes you don't know until after, when they come up to you, you know what worked, and then you know what they resonated with, right? I think such an important part of what feedback I'm getting from Black women and other people in these spaces is the narrative and personal storytelling. I use myself so much in my work because I'm not separate from it, right? I got into this work because I'm a Black girl from the South Side of Chicago. So I pull that voice and that narrative and what those experiences were in my lack of diversity in this place that I went, in the limited socioeconomic status and poverty I grew up in the K through 12 system that was disparate, right, towards underrepresented. So I bring that into the diversity, equity, inclusion space because these are the same folks we're trying to recruit. And without that story, you're not going to connect or engage with me because who are you, right? Is it just the research, Tanisha? Are you just a PhD? Or have you had some lived experiences, right? That's going to help tell this story. And so I know they're engaged when I hear them kind of reshare what connected with them at the end of those keynotes.
Yeah. And then in the video space, you kind of know when, people, if you're live, they're typing it in and saying, what about this? Or, asking you questions so that you know that they're tuned in. Or even, like I said in the beginning in my intro, after this is posted, comment, ask me questions. I definitely want to engage with you. So it's always ways, if you're live or on video, where if people are connecting with you. And that's important. Like you said, if someone comes up to you at the end, oh, okay, they really was vibing with this or whatever. So it really is important.
Right, absolutely.
Yes. So thank you so much, Tanisha. This has been a great, great, great conversation. And I just want to ask two more questions before I let you go. What's next for you, and how can people stay connected with you?
Ooh, what's next? So I'll be busy. So Rosie, you saw probably a bio or some child. So Tanisha don't sit down too much. I ran for political office in the past and won that, and finished the PhD at the same time, and wrote a book before the PhD was done. So I'm a busybody. I like to stay engaged and I like to have projects. So upcoming, I'm doing a collective anthology with Black women who experienced emotional and verbal abuse in relationships. That anthology is being released in April and it'll be available on Amazon. I have the second annual Magical Black Academy, Earn Your MBA with Dr. King Speaks, for Black youth to learn about Black Wall Street, the Tulsa Massacre, so on and so forth, things that they don't teach you, okay, in the schoolhouse, in the K through 12 system. And so that'll be launching for registration this summer. Folks can find me at Dr. King Speaks everywhere on your social media platforms. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter.
Well, thank you again. This has been a great conversation. So now I'm going to ask you guys, what is your takeaway from this episode? Tanisha spilled a lot. We talked about a lot, and I want to hear from you. So definitely tell me in the comment what your biggest takeaway from this conversation was. And if you feel moved, make sure that you take action today. Once you give us your comment, take action. Don't sit on it. Don't wait till next month. Don't wait till next year. Do it today. And if you have any questions that you want me to address in future episodes, please, please, please share them with me. Also, some additional ways I can help your Go Live journey: join my email community. We have weekly videos in there that motivates your Go Live journey. We have giveaways, spotlight community members, and we have exclusive offers. So sign up on my website, rosiefaulkner.com. That first pop-up you will see on my homepage, just enter your name and your email address, and voila, you will be a part of our email community. Shooting the Shits with Rosie. Are you watching? This occurs every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. I am live. I'm there to take any of your questions about showing up on camera. And we just have a dialogue about going live. So it's something that is just so fun, and I love doing every Tuesday. So join me. My program, I'm doing this, I'm going live. If you're interested, definitely DM me on IG or Facebook to schedule your free chat to see if you are a fit. It's a 4-week online program. It will help you overcome mindset challenges, get you comfortable with the tools needed to go live, help you navigate the various social media platforms. And after all of that, you will become courageous enough to hit that go live button. So again, DM me on IG or Facebook to schedule a call to see if we are a fit for each other. And if you find value in this video, I want you to subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, hit that notification bell, and check out my other videos on this channel. Share this episode link with one other person that you know could benefit from this conversation that we had. And follow me on Facebook, Rosie Faulkner, and IG Faulkner_Rosie. And as always, feel free to DM me and let me know how I can personally support you. Last but not least, as I always end my shows, the world is waiting for you to do what only you can. Your voice needs to be heard because it matters to someone. So let's turn on the camera, turn up the confidence, and tell your story. Until next time.